In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hi, welcome to the In the Last Days television program. Great to have you with us. And we welcome you all across Europe, friends in the UK and into on the internet, everybody watching. So you're very welcome to this special Israeli election program. And we've, again, from last week, we've got Rabbi Lipman. Welcome to the program from Yesh Atid. You're very welcome here in the studio and great to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming across from Bet Shemesh today. I know that you're very busy at the moment with the campaign and everything, so we really appreciate that. And it may be as the program goes out that we either have the decision or the election is in progress. So let's start off with why you're running for Knesset with Yesh Atid, because many of the viewers last week they will have seen maybe the program and you were with Yesh Atid, but before you were with Am Shalem. So maybe we can start off there with why you're running for this party.
Yeah, I want to make a change. I want to be part of making a change in Israel, of replacing the old politics with new politics, a new, fresh party with fresh ideas, fresh people who are really committed to addressing the pressing needs within Israeli society. And to be part of a party where you have a cross-section of Israeli society in terms of the Knesset representatives, where we're saying we'll put aside our own individual interests and work together for the greater good of Israel, that's why I'm here.
And you've got your leader is Yair Lapid. He's for those at home, he's a charismatic figure in Israel. He's been hosting a program on Channel 1, which isn't very far from the studio today, down the road. And he's been a journalist. And I remember actually when he came, I was watching the program, Friends, when he was announced. And I didn't know who he was, but I thought this is somebody really charismatic, who's enthusiastic, who you catch his excitement for life.
Absolutely. He has a great leadership quality in terms of being able to raise people up. And he really wants to do this for the good of the future of the state of Israel. He had a very nice, comfortable life in the role that he had before. If he becomes a government minister, he'll be making far less money than he was in the private sector. But he's doing it because he cares about the state of Israel, and he wants to make the state of Israel better. And all of us on the Yesh Atid Knesset list are really coming with that perspective.
And you came from the United States, but you were a bit involved, I understand, in the States with you were doing some work in Capitol Hill. Is that right?
So when I was younger, actually, I grew up in the Washington D.C. area, so you can't live there without being somewhat pulled towards the political realm. I actually was an intern in Congress for Congressman John Dingell at 16 years old, and certainly got the political bug when I was there. I thought that, wow, being in a place where such important decisions are being made, you can really make a difference. It certainly attracted me. I sort of veered from that for a while and became an educator. I have a master's in education and was a teacher and then principal. And when we moved to Israel, certainly wasn't thinking about politics. But then when you start seeing the needs to make change, you see issues which need to be addressed, you slowly learn that the only place to make that happen is the political realm. You can be the greatest community activist in the world, but there's a certain point where it's politics, and that's where legislation is made, and that's where real change can be made. And made the decision together with my wife that that's the path that we have to take in order to make the change, and was so fortunate to find the Yesh Atid party, which as its slogan is Banu Lishanot in Hebrew, which means we're here to make change.
And if we can explain for our friends at home, the Yesh Atid, what does that mean in English?
Literally means there is a future.
Okay.
We don't have to live assuming that things will stay the way they are, the status quo. That's not the case. The Jewish people certainly have always been evolving and working and trying to make improvements. The entire state of Israel came out of people who believed Yesh Atid, that there's a future, and therefore we're saying, okay, the state of Israel's here, now let's make it greater internally and create a better future.
And as you're going on the campaign trail, are you all in different places, or are you having meetings sometimes together with
we certainly
up here?
Sure, we certainly have a weekly meeting where we're all together. We also have joint events sometimes. when those things are not happening, when those moments aren't happening, we're all on our own, reaching out to the groups that we're familiar with, or those who are familiar with us and invite us to come to meetings or parlor meetings or debates. One of the things which doesn't happen in Israel enough is people who really get up, leaders really get up and debate the issues. Yet you're actually called for a debate amongst the leaders of each of the parties. It did not happen. We're very confident in what we stand for because we have plans to deal with all the burning issues in Israel. But on the English-speaking side, the Jerusalem Post and other organizations actually organize debates, panels, and I think we have 6 of them scheduled where each party will send an English-speaking representative. That's a large part of my responsibility.
And when are these in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem?
Spread throughout the entire country, Haifa and Ra'anana and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Beersheba. And over the course of the last month leading up to the elections, the people will be able to come and hear the representatives of each of the parties and make an intelligent decision on January 22nd.
So you're building up to this. So are you able to have some time at home, because you must be doing a lot of meetings? And
so there's no question that in order to for anyone to be involved in an election campaign in any real way, there has to be the strong support of the family, which includes the family understanding that you won't be home very often. My wife and I have created a schedule where, for the most part, I'm home. First of all, I drive my children to school every morning, so we have those 10, 15 minutes together in the morning. But then I'm also home for the most part every dinner time, and we sit down every night and spend the time together. It certainly gives us the feeling that we're still together as a family. But aside from that, the family is very supportive. My family is very excited about what we're doing. Whether I personally get into the Knesset or not, at the end of the day, we're trying to make a change. We're trying to do something for their futures, and my children understand that. They all know the entire stump speech pretty much by heart. They walk around singing the jingle sometimes, and it's an exciting time even on a family level. We've managed, and that's to my wife's credit, to preserve the family structure and get the family excited about what I'm doing, even though I am away a lot.
And the Yesh Atid party is campaigning as probably we might, as this program goes out, it might well be that the elections happen. I know that your mother was very excited about your role now in the election, and there was a wonderful picture. Maybe we'll be able to get that on of you and your mother in America before coming here, and she's very excited as well about this.
My mother actually immigrated to Israel 2 months ago, and when the representative from the Israeli government was interviewing her, which they do for anybody who's asking for citizenship, he asked her, "Why are you moving to Israel?" And certainly this wasn't the depth of the answer, but she said, "So I can vote for my son for Knesset," and she will be here on election day with voting rights, and I'm sure that's a pride for her to be able to vote for a party in which her son is a representative. But I come from a home where there's no question we understood the importance of Israel and Zionism, and that certainly pushes everything which I'm trying to do for the country.
Now, one of the problems that elections tend to suffer from is turnout. Is there any way that you can solve that? I mean,
we're working very hard on trying to bring out the vote. There's no people. It's interesting. It's hard for me to understand. I'm being very frank. It's hard for me to understand living in any country where you're not living under a despot and an absolute monarch, and you have the right to say something about your future, and that people don't do that. It's very hard for me to understand that perspective. But we are working very hard on trying to bring out people who don't vote in Israel and showing them why Yesh Atid is the party that will represent them and make things better for them. I think people are very cynical. They're used to old politics, and that's part of why they don't come to vote. Getting the message out that there's a new politics, that there's a new party, there's something fresh happening, certainly can draw more people to vote, and we're certainly hoping that happens.
Because a lot of politics can be very in cliches. There's certain people who vote for certain parties because they've always voted, maybe your family voted that way, or father and mother voted that way, and it's passed down through the generations. So sometimes, and then in Israel we have communities, for example, the Israeli Arabs have their own party, their own parties, and I think even the Ethiopian community has certain...
They don't have their own party, but they have representatives. But you're right. Certainly the idea of our family votes a certain way is very much a part of Israeli culture. And that certainly creates a challenge for a new party, because if people historically have voted Likud or historically have voted Labor, it's very difficult to pull them towards our party. But again, like I said, when they hear the message, when people understand Likud hasn't solved these problems, Labor hasn't solved these problems, the next step should obviously be, let's give someone else a chance, and certainly a party which is coming with real plans to make these changes, and that's what we see happening on the street.
And I think people have been, sometimes they've seen things happen in politics and they think, well, that's not right, and sometimes they think some things are too extreme, they're too left-wing or too right-wing. They look at things, and so maybe there is a place. I know that in the UK at the moment we have a conservative liberal government, which would have been perhaps unheard of, this coalition. So for the middle ground, there is a...
For sure. And I think also, aside from having parties which people have voted for in Israel, you also have the religious-secular divide in Israel. So people voted for religious parties in the past or voted for secular parties in the past. Part of what Yesh Atid is trying to change is that culture and that environment where we say, I'm religious, he's secular, we're working together. Trying to just break those molds which people have in their minds in terms of how things are supposed to be. Another very important change is we have 8 women in the top 20 in our list, something which has not happened in Israeli history. Just breaking the way things have been done in the past and showing people we can do things in a new way, in a better way, to make Israeli society a much better place.
Now we're going to talk a bit about and go to the day when you had the big meeting, and hopefully we can show some film of this, where you were introduced as the candidate, and that's Yair Lapid was there, and all the Yesh Atid candidates were on the platform, and there's great excitement. What was that line?
First of all, like you said, the word excitement is really the word I would use. Enthusiasm, excitement, great hopes for a future. And I think when people looked at that stage and saw the 25 people who were on there, and saw a total cross-section of society, people like myself wearing kippot, people without kippot, men, women, Russians, Ethiopians, English speakers, all of us coming together, I think that was very exciting for people to see and refreshing. But more than that, it's also how we went about introducing the list. Yair started and introduced the number 2 on the list, and then the number 2, who's a religious Zionist rabbi, introduced the number 3, and so on and so forth. So that I was introduced by a woman, Yifat Kariv from Hod HaSharon, who was before me, and then I was able to introduce Boaz Toporowski, who was after me. It just showed the unity which we're trying to represent to Israeli society. No infighting, no politics as usual, where everyone's looking out for their own seat or their own position. We're here to make change, and making change means we're agenda-driven, not position-driven. And we'll sit in the government if they follow our agenda. We'll sit in the opposition if they won't follow our agenda, and build ourselves from there. But the environment in the room was just electric. It was electric. You felt it, and you felt people saying, wow, it doesn't have to be voting Likud like usual or voting Labor like usual, where I know nothing's going to happen anyway, but there's something new and fresh and exciting, and Israel really has a future.
And the Yesh Atid, when it gets after the election and the results are known and the seats are allotted, do you think that they'll be part of the coalition, or will there be? I mean, I'm jumping ahead a wee bit but have they got any plans for after election day?
Absolutely. We're certainly willing to be in the coalition, meaning this is not a party which was started to topple Prime Minister Netanyahu. The agenda is, how do we get these points taken care of in terms of Israeli society? So if, let's assume, according to the polls right now, Prime Minister Netanyahu will have the most seats, especially with his merger with Israel Beitenu, if that's the case, we are willing to sit in the government, assuming that he's willing to address equality and national service and housing reform and electoral reform and education reform and all of the issues that we want to address. If he just doesn't want to deal with those and he wants to be pulled by the smaller sectarian groups to their interests, we'll go to the opposition and build ourselves from there and be a strong opposition. So I can't tell you right now what will happen, but I can tell you what we're open to and certainly what our agenda is.
And do you think that Yesh Atid will be working in local politics, because you have mayors and...
We definitely have a plan for that. There's certainly strongholds that we have where we can actually, the municipal elections are in October 2013, not so far away. We certainly do hope to run candidates on a local level as well. But right now, our focus is purely on one thing, and that is finding voters and having the maximum number of seats we can have on January 22nd. That's really the most important thing.
Now, I know that Obama, when I don't know for this election, but I remember looking at how the last time he was elected as president, he was actually, working on his BlackBerry, and there was a lot of Facebook and a lot of social media, doing a lot of phoning up people. Is that something that you're doing?
We've broken all the rules in terms of Facebook and the like. We see the social network as critical towards, for the first time, you can reach somebody in their living room without going anywhere. Yair last night, for example, did a video chat with Israel. Instead of going to a location and speaking to 400 people, he had tens of thousands of people linked in to hear him speak. So we're definitely making use of that. We have the Hebrew Yair Lapid page, which has over 100,000 people on it. We've started an English Yesh Atid page where people can get daily updates and see our videos and see our materials in English. And there's no question it's a huge part of our campaign effort.
And because the digital media has changed everything, I was reading a very interesting article about how our world's changed, especially for those of us who are not so young. And the world of newspapers, we were brought up with newspapers and televisions, but now we live in this digital society with Twitter and Facebook, and it's a very different
Absolutely.
society.
Over 4 million Israelis are on Facebook, and they say that Israelis are, by percentage, use Facebook far more than any other countries. Less Twitter, more Facebook, and that's where we're focusing. And there's no question that you can reach out to people. That's really the message here. Get the message out, and then people respond. And that's what we're doing via the social media.
Now, I think we were speaking, I wasn't sure if it was the last program or between, but we were talking about, Lapid, and he was meeting the Haredi, the religious Jewish people, and particularly known for the black hats, and he was meeting them. And how did that go?
So this actually happened before Yair announced his going into politics, entered into politics. He met with a group in a place called Kiryat Ono, and he made an amazingly bold and courageous statement. And he said that Israel, as a Jewish country, when it was founded, had a major battle on its hands. There was the secular Zionism on the one hand, which was suggesting that we could build a new Judaism in Israel without the religious traditions of the past. And we had the religious side, which was saying that our only claim to be in Israel and our only right to be in Israel and the only basis to be here is the religious side. And this was a clash, and that's healthy, and that's what happens in democratic civilizations. Yair said to the religious community, you won. You've won. You've shown, you've demonstrated that there's no basis to be in Israel without the tradition and the religious side of things. Not that everybody has to be religious, but our being here has to be based on our traditions and the Bible and the like. He said, now let's work together. That battle's behind us. You've won. Let's work together now to move things forward to make a greater Israel. And I think that's a tremendous moment in our history where someone who's seen as a very secular leader, a secular personality, would make that statement. And I'm very happy that many religious people have come to meet with him. His number two in the party, our number two, Rabbi Shai Paron, Dr. Liza Levi, who's number 7 on the list, also religious Zionist, myself, and many of our supporters who are religious were saying, he's right, it's time for us to work together. Let's not have that battle anymore. It's not us against them, it's all of us in this together, and that's how we'll make Israel reach its true potential.
And we know that for some Haredi, they have problems with Israel being a nation again. So I guess there's going to be quite a lot of work to instruct them, or...
Yeah, well, you're always going to have extremists on all sides, and that's something which any society will have, and you're never going to be able to stop that. The question is, how much influence do the extremists have? And right now, there is extremist representation in the Knesset on the ultra-Orthodox side, not truly representing the needs of the average ultra-Orthodox person who is fervently religious, but moderate in terms of his perspective, willing to work together with other people, be part of the society. And that's a change which we're trying to make, to create a representation even for that community, to free them, so to speak, from this, from the scenario their leaders have put them in, where they are very much isolated and closed. But the numbers of extremists who are anti the state to the degree that you sometimes see on television is very minimal. Unfortunately, that can make a lot of noise.
I think the problem with television is that we see things, events happening, and we presume that's happening everywhere and with larger numbers than it really is.
Absolutely. I would venture to say, and again, I don't know your viewers through and through, that many people see the image of a man with the black hat and the beard and the side locks and the long black coat and assume on some level that must be a really bad man. That must be someone who is not nice to other people and who mistreats other people and disrespects. And the truth is, it's really the opposite. They're very often, not often, they're usually the most loving, caring husbands, fathers, community people. The ultra-Orthodox community has unbelievable amounts of what they call gemachim, which are organizations that just give people things for free when they need them, and it's just a misunderstanding because you see the image of someone in that dress doing terrible things sometimes, and that's a horrible thing to see. That's part of what we want to do as well, is to heal those wounds and really show how they are a part of Israeli society and they are wonderful people. Getting them into the workforce, breaking down that barrier will do a lot towards that, where they can feel that they're really sustaining their families properly, and they can be as fervently religious as they want, as committed religiously as they want, but still be productive, upstanding members of Israeli society. And I hope that everyone around the world will understand that being fervently and ultra-Orthodox has no correlation to anything other than hopefully being a very upstanding and decent person.
And there's a lot of great things in the communities, and we had the privilege, Natalie and I, of having Shabbat in Meir Shirim, and the atmosphere was electric, and we didn't have a black hat or anything. We just walked in like dressed as we normally do, and people were very kind, very generous, and we had a wonderful time. And the standards for, there's always exceptions, and we have to be careful because people will say, well, what about that? But the standards are very high, aren't they, with marriage and with bringing up children? And
absolutely. The family values is something which I think that they really highlight. We really highlight the idea that a young child, there's an expectation, not in a negative way, in a positive way, that you're going to get married and start a family, and the family unit is certainly amongst the highest values in the state of Israel. And certainly the ultra-Orthodox population represents that. We've had buses of tourists who come to Beit Shemesh because they've heard that in Beit Shemesh that's where the extremism is. And you literally see them coming off the bus and they're expecting to have rocks flying at them or extremists attacking them, and they're very pleasantly surprised to see a normal city functioning as usual. We dealt with the issue of the extremists. It's not something which is en masse throughout the city. And I really feel that the time has come for people to see the other side in terms of the ultra-Orthodox population. And many are already serving in the army. Many are working. Yesh Atid hopes to facilitate that becomes the norm, and that everyone should see a country where, from ultra-Orthodox to secular, we respect each other, we love each other, and we're working together.
And one of the issues for Israeli society, in fact, there were protests about this, was the housing situation. And I caught some of the Yesh Atid. You've done a video and talking about this exact thing, because many young people, which is the same in the UK and across the world, many young people are finding it difficult to get housing.
Absolutely. This relates to the issue of all the elections revolving around the Palestinian issue and the security issue, and as that happened, not because of any maliciousness, but just as a result of lack of attention, some very critical internal issues have been overlooked, and included in that is the issue of housing. As you mentioned, the number of monthly paychecks that it takes for an average family to save and be able to purchase an average 4-room home is way beyond what it should be, and that has to change, and we do have a plan to address that. And unfortunately, the other parties have not been addressing that. And that's part of what we're saying to Israeli society is The old parties have not addressed this issue. They've been in power, and yet it's gotten to the point where we're at today. We have a plan, give new people a chance to address the issue, and we will not sit in a government which is not going to address this issue.
And this is a really serious issue because it's putting a lot of strain on society. There were the famous tent protests in Tel Aviv. There was people sleeping, and indeed in Jerusalem we had the tent protests as well, of people protesting that it's very, very difficult to find housing, affordable housing, I guess we call it in England, but it's very difficult for young people who are maybe not on high salary, they're just starting into the workforce, and to have somewhere for themselves.
We want to create a scenario where the average hard-working young couple served in the army, went to university, playing by all the rules, that they have the opportunity to purchase a home. That's the ultimate goal. It'll take time. It takes certain reforms that we have to take care of in terms of the government, but we will get there. That is an absolute commitment that we have in Yesh Atid. That's why we're here. We're here to make that change so that my children will be able to purchase a new home, a comfortable home, and be able to flourish as they should within the context of the home, as you talked about before.
In fact, I think Dev, I remember reading once that the fear of many young Israelis wasn't about war or about terrorism, but it was actually, what are we going to do and where are we going to live when,
Correct. I think we've proven in 64 years, surrounded on all sides by enemies, that we know how to deal with that. Thank God, we have an army which takes care of it and knows what they're doing with experts. We have that. Now it's time for more of a focus on the internal issues. It's a very interesting thing. In the past, the government was usually made of people who are former generals in the army. Today we see a phenomenon where it's not that way. We mentioned Yair Lapid, who's a journalist. There are other journalists. Maybe, Martin, you have a future in Israeli politics as well. People are coming from other areas of life and taking leadership roles. I think that reflects the idea that the military will take care of its own, but doesn't mean that they have to be the leaders of the country. We have other issues we have to address, and that's what Yesh Atid is here to do.
Well, we're out of time again. It's been great to have you with us. We wish you every success with the election. I know that it's a lot of work, so we hope that everything goes very, very well for you, and maybe we'll be able to talk again and reflect on what's happened, and you can tell us all about the results. It's a very exciting time, and if you'd like more information, we'll be putting details on the screen how you can find out about Yesh Atid. It's been great to be with you, and don't forget, we're living in the last days.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.